All right, so we're gonna watch a video first for a little bit, and then at 3 a.m. we're gonna try schedule one. We're gonna give it a shot. Everyone made a big deal about it. I have tried it before, but yeah, it didn't grab me right away. I thought the controls were a little iffy, but we'll give it another chance. First, watch a video to get things started. Here we go.
Noticed how increasingly more common it's becoming for some of these indie games to come out of left field and just absolutely decimate. I'm talking player numbers and sales that are embarrassing AAA games. Games made by one guy beating teams of 1,000 developers, tens of.
I'll say flat out, I don't like Legendary Drops all that much. He's got some good points, but he feels like he's from like the 6th generation where like, oh, we deserve more. And I'm looking at him like, no. But there's this brigade of, it's not just him, but it's a lot of people saying, oh, down with the AAA developers. We should speak up. We should rise up, do this and that. And I'm like, no, just buy the games you want to buy. Just vote with your wallet. That's it. That's all they care about. When you speak about shit, no one cares. When you do something, they care. But we'll watch the video.
Thousands if we're going to count Ubisoft in this conversation. Well, probably not for long, but Schedule One is a game about friendship. It's about making connections. It's about starting from the bottom and working your way up. It's a game about drugs. It's a game about drugs, which makes it all the more ironic for how addicting the game is to play. But I'm seeing this game all over the place. It's on Twitter, it's on Reddit, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitch. My buddy who just got his first gaming PC opens up Steam for the first time, and it's the first game that he buys. Games like Schedule One are becoming a problem because these games are beating out games that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make their games. They're doing it without any marketing. And worst of all, they're cutting out the middleman. You can't have that. Because once you start doing those kind of things, when you have that kind of freedom to create and you're reaching that kind of success, you're going to start to attract some unwanted attention. And that's exactly where Schedule One is today. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the insane success of Schedule One, my experience playing it, and why an industry that's ran by investors can't let games like this exist. Schedule One released 2 weeks ago, and within days...
Schedule One is popular because it's about drug distribution, and drugs are still popular with pop culture nowadays. Kids think drugs are cool, even though I think they're stupid. I don't do drugs. I just don't. Sorry, I got a lot more to live for.
It had already climbed the Steam charts. As of recording this video, it is #1 top seller on Steam. It is #4 for concurrent players, and it recently hit a peak of over 450,000 concurrent players, and now averaging 340,000 concurrent players per day. It's currently outperforming Path of Exile, which just released new content, edging out Monster Hunter Wilds after its first title update, and it's completely humiliating the quadruple A spectacle that is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Schedule One is another entry in what is becoming an increasingly common trend: indie developers releasing games with little to no marketing and watching them explode across the internet. Think Undertale, Stardew Valley, Vampire Survivors, Valheim, Palworld, Balatro. Games made by a single developer or a tiny team delivering exactly what players have been missing and absolutely dominating the charts. The game was developed by Tyler, an independent developer out of Sydney, Australia, working under the name Tyler's Video Game Studio. I laugh every single time I read that.
It's also about the price of the game, which is also unique, but it's also the fact that you're selling drugs, and drugs are still popular with a lot of young kids nowadays. It's drugs and money that are popular with kids. Don't ask why. They get the worst information from around the globe, but hey, that's just the way it is in social media.
Tyler handled nearly every aspect of the game himself, designing the game, programming it, systems, and the art, but he had some help with collaborators like Kay Sewell, who's the one that composed the game's catchy soundtrack. Seriously, I've been jamming that music in the background while I've been writing now, and Cody 2, who created some of the game's graffiti. Now, despite its niche, the game has resonated with an enormous audience, and I think part of that has to do with the genre. Schedule One, at its core, is just a crafting sim. You start with nothing and you work your way up through progressively more complex crafting systems, increasing your wealth, unlocking more neighborhoods, and expanding your influence. It's a familiar loop, or one that I've definitely hooked myself on quite a lot with games like Terraria, Valheim, Enshrouded, or Minecraft, but Schedule One's twist is the plot. You're essentially a small-time dealer growing your own product, refining it, selling it, and building out a crew to be able to help you scale out. I've personally sunk over 50 hours into the game now, and I've nearly unlocked everything short of the final neighborhood. And I'm completely sold. I keep playing the game every chance that I get. I love games like this, open-ended crafting sims where you get to define the pace yourself, experiment with systems, and you get to feel like your time that you're investing into the game directly translates to actual growth within that game. You can be methodical, you can squeeze every little bit of value out of all of your resources, or you can brute force your way through, scaling up as fast as possible. Hell, you can even automate the entire process, so the game basically just plays itself. It's up to you. Don't laugh at me for getting technical, but what I think makes this game really special is how seamlessly it transitions between its two core gameplay loops, production and social progression. The first loop, growing and crafting, is simple at first. Plant a seed, water it, harvest the flower, but over time you start to get access to additives, fertilizers, environmental controls, and scalable infrastructure. Every plant then has its own unique traits, cost, potency, NPC demand. Then comes in the mixing system where you can start to enhance products with different effects like making NPCs shoot out lightning, walk around on clouds, or turn them into aliens or zombies. It's ridiculous, but it serves a purpose to increase the product's price and its appeal to your customers. I found myself lost here for hours experimenting with different mixtures and different orders of those mixtures and different effects that they could have, and now I have an 8-buff recipe, completely automated, and it's listing the product for over $1,000. That feels good. Which then that brings me to the game's second loop, networking, and as your operation grows, you start to target different specific NPCs based on their preferences. You start to build rapport, earn trust, unlock new customers, recruit new crew members, and eventually get access to new suppliers. They're going to boost your overall operation. It's a system that blends an emergent strategy with good old-fashioned trial and error, and it's surprisingly deep. Look, I'll be honest with you guys, I completely assumed that this game's popularity was mostly due to its shock value. It's not every day that you see a game about selling powder and flour to cartoon NPCs become a top seller, but the longer I played, the more I realized how satisfying all of its core systems really are. It's not just the subject matter, it's how involved you are in the process. And honestly, I think that's something that a lot of modern games have largely forgotten. In a lot of ways, the game actually reminds me of all the things that I really loved about Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is a crazy comparison to make when you think about it. But when you're crafting a potion in that game, you're picking the herbs, you're grinding them manually, you're boiling them, you're maximizing your yield based on real input.
Yeah, that my game's more simplified. That's just me. You know, like I just want to be able to get things done, and that's it. Like, to me, like, a game that always gives me a headache is Slime Rancher. I love the game, but I can get a little jaded from time to time. That's the way it plays. Because I'm not really the best with micromanaging sometimes, but, like, once I get a system down, then, yeah, it works. We're going to try that in Schedule 1, see if I can work out a system that works great for me. But we'll see. Yeah, it'll be a thing.
Smithing swords with a hammer and timing it perfectly. You're controlling the temperature. You're properly sharpening weapons. This game makes you feel like you're doing that sort of work. Schedule 1, despite its goofy presentation, accomplishes something very similar here. You're adding ingredients, you're testing combinations, you're watching the effects, packaging your own product, and you're hitting the streets to make sales. The feedback loop is immediate and immersive, and it's not about watching a progress bar, it's about feeling like you're actually earning something by doing it. And it never loses its charm. The art style is crude in a deliberate way, full of absurd and surreal-looking NPCs with exaggerated animations. You're hiding in dumpsters. The game's fastest vehicle is a golden skateboard, and you're brewing concoctions that warp the laws of nature itself. But underneath all of that madness is a tight, responsive, and deeply satisfying gameplay loop. You're laughing 1 minute, and you're planning your expansion strategy the next. I love that every system feeds into one another. Want to automate your production? Well, you're going to need to build out, buy some infrastructure, and hire some employees. Want to scale up quickly? Well, you're going to need to build rep with your suppliers to be able to make more product. Want to maximize your profit? Well, you're going to need to mix with precision and cater to customer demand. Yet at the exact same time, you can ignore all of that if you want, but if you want to dive in, you're rewarded for it. There's a surprising amount of freedom in how you approach everything. You can have your crew pushing your product while you're the one that's focusing on crafting. You can work solo and micromanage every step. You can run your empire in real time during the day and then focus on restocking and production at night. The game never really forces you into one particular play style, but everything feels intuitive enough that you always feel like you're making some sort of progress. I think what Schedule 1 proves, yet again in this case, especially when it comes to these indie games, is that the gap between indie and AAA has never been wider. I mean, I never take the time to analyze or even notice these kind of things if they even exist in AAA games. Their games are so bloated, overproduced, obsessed with cutscenes and cinematic presentation, often to the detriment of the actual experience. Schedule 1 is the opposite, and
The reason why they focus on that is because back in the 7th generation, in the 6th generation, More people wanted games with like movies. They wanted to be easy, simple to access. They were caring about story. They cared about what actors were in the game, stuff like that. So they had nothing to do with the game at all, to be honest with you. But those are the games that sold the most copies. Nowadays, we're losing all that because people are just getting sick of the same old stuff. They're like, no, we want something different. And more people are buying games like this. Why? Because they're cheap, they're simple, they're straightforward, and there's something new. And yeah, the drug part of it that's going to add to the sale value a little bit because drugs are still popular for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it is what it is.
I love games like this. So do the players. That's obvious enough. It's lean, it's focused, it's gameplay first, and it works because it never forgets what players are actually here for, to play. Schedule 1 only costs $20. It delivers potentially hundreds of hours of content, strong systems, tons of replay value, and a surprising amount of multiplayer depth. It didn't need a cinematic trailer. It didn't need a live-action ad campaign. It didn't need pre-order bonuses or influencer hype. It just needed to be good, and that was enough. This is going to sound ridiculous. I'm trying to think of the best way to be able to explain it. The graffiti on the wall is oddly relatable. Makes me feel like one of my friends could have made this game. And I think that has something to do with the game's popularity. Because the inside jokes, the naming of the different products that you can put into stuff, the naming of the product that comes out in the end. I got the whole block hooked on Gorilla Smegma.
Yeah, and also, you got to remember, too, this is another problem that people still don't understand about why the industry is where it's at right now with AAA. We had a lot of gamers for the longest time to support the same old brands for so long because they didn't care. They were like, I'm going to buy games from this developer. Why? Because I feel like it. I don't care if it's bad. I'm going to buy it anyway. And now we're seeing the aftermath of that, where it's like, okay, now they're going to rip you off left, right, and sideways. Why? Because you said you were going to buy it anyway. And now we get people, that kind of suit a new tone, so to speak, to where they're like, well, now I'm going to buy games like this because, well, screw the system. And it's like, no, you kind of teach your words a little bit on that. It's like, you can't support the same developers over and over again and then cry wolf and all of a sudden, oh, they're screwing you over. It's kind of a weird system that people don't want to admit to. Not saying Legendary Drops is one of those people, he's got his opinions, don't get me wrong, but still, like, it's in that category.
Fucking hilarious, dude. And that's endearing. You want to see that. You see yourself in the game, and you feel like you can relate to the person who made it. I don't feel that way with a lot of games, and I haven't for a long time. And I think that's an incredibly important connection to be able to make. It's one of the intangibles of game design, where you feel like your humor, imagination, your interests are shared by the people that made it. You feel vindicated in that. Like you have something in common. And it's called being in touch with your audience. And I think just about anybody can say that this industry has been way out of touch with its audience for a long time. And I've played a lot of games since starting this channel. And at this point, I'm starting to feel like these game developers live in an alternate universe. Nothing feels relatable to me. Everything has to be a tangent to what's going on in the real world.
It's not the developers, it's the executives who are running these companies. They live in an alternate universe because the money was there a long time ago, and they're still thinking, okay, maybe it's still there. Remember, the audience is still there. You got to remember also, in the 2000s, email was still a brand new thing for a lot of people. So what they would do is they would email companies. It's usually a handful of people doing this, but they would like barrage them with emails saying, we want this, we want this, we want this. And they would bring that to the developer saying, this is what people want, let's put it in the game. This is also why you see a lot of weird shit in games. Sometimes it's like, no one asked for that. And they're like, well, yes, you did. It says it right here. We still have that problem we're dealing with. Also, executives with some of these companies, we're starting to see they're not really all that smart, which has been a problem for like a little while now. But a lot of companies, we get these executives who never really went to college. They never really got any degrees in anything. They have a fake degree they bought from China. And they have a bullshit resume that got them the job, and they bullied their way into that job, only to realize, one, they're a narcissist because they don't want to accept failure in anything, and plus their decisions now cause other people's jobs. That's part of the problem with all this, and yeah, we need to get out of that. This is one way to get out of that, of course. Just support small developers. Don't buy the big shit, no, just buy the small shit. Let them learn the hard way. This is what people want.
everything has to have a deeper message. Not everything needs to be like that. It's just not necessary. $20. Another $20 game goes on to sell millions of copies, making a solo developer a millionaire overnight. You know, when this game released and it immediately started to find some popularity, the developer went and put the game on sale. Who does that? Somebody that wants to make money. Somebody that knows what you need to do. Make a fun game. Make it fairly priced. People buy it. Crazy concept, I know. This isn't rocket science. How many times have I seen these developers that are basically trying to learn astrology to figure out what players want? Maybe if we read their horoscopes. Then you have a game that makes it where you can put horse glaze and chili powder into something to set somebody's hair on fire and give them a long face. Monkey brain me like game. Me give money. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. But that scares these C-suite executives because they don't understand the popularity, the virality, the relatability of these games because they can't reproduce it. They can't crack the code on this kind of thing.
It doesn't scare them. It just confuses them. They were like, you bought our games 5 years ago. Why are you not buying anymore? Is what you asked for. And then, also the budgets are through the roof. They keep making changes to the social changes and social norms. And they don't get what's going on because there's too much going on sometimes. And, now we're seeing people buy smaller games again, which is good. I would still say one of the best indie games, in my opinion, is still Mullet Mad Jack. You haven't played that yet? I'd say give that a shot. It's also a $20 game. But that's just one of my recommendations. Or Arcade Paradise, another $20 game, which is also developed by indie developers. Great game. You haven't played it? Give it a shot. It's a good time sink game. That's what I would recommend.
And because of that, their only answer is to suppress it. It's actually kind of insane how often we're seeing some of these viral indie hits run straight into some form of cold corporate or bureaucratic resistance, whether it's from platform policies, rating boards, legal ambiguity, or flat out attempts to suppress or discredit them. There is a growing pattern here. A developer releases something fresh and unexpected, it takes off, and suddenly they're in the crosshairs, not because they did anything wrong, but because they succeeded outside of the system. When you take a moment to look at the legal and bureaucratic minefield that these indie developers have to tiptoe around just to be able to release a game, it's genuinely surprising that we ever see anything original at all. The modern gaming landscape isn't built to encourage creativity. It's structured to protect existing power, intellectual property, and investor interests. In some ways, the system is designed to suffocate innovation unless it's coming from an approved source.
This is kind of why, a lot of small developers have to go to corporations because they have the legal back end to defend you, whereas a small developer usually doesn't. They don't have the money, they don't have the legal mindset or any of that stuff to deal with the process. Now, the good news is that most court systems, they take one look at a case like this and they just throw it out. So they're like, no, you can make your own version of this. It's not illegal. It's kind of stupid for them to even try to pull cases like this, unless it's one-to-one code for code, which good luck trying to claim that. It's just not going to work.
Balatro got slammed by ratings boards for supposedly promoting gambling just because it used poker hands in a scoring system despite no real gambling mechanics being in the game whatsoever. Palworld came under fire for copying Pokemon, even though the gameplay is wildly different because Nintendo's patent net is so wide that even breathing now seems like it's lawsuit worthy.
Palworld came under fire because it looked like Pokemon. It looked like Pokemon. The gameplay was a little different, but it looked like Pokemon. So that's why Nintendo went after it, It's kind of messed up, don't get me wrong. I'm not on Nintendo's side for that. I do think it's kind of messed up. I didn't like it because I thought it was going to be full-on first-person shooter, but it was not. It was just hardcore Pokemon. So, it is what it is.
While in litigation with Pocket Pair, Nintendo is still trying to file new patents to retroactively catch them on. It's reaching a point where making a game that even feels familiar or is using visual shorthand that players understand can get you pulled from storefronts and buried in lawsuits. Now,
those patents will never go through. And not only that, you can't go after someone after a patent's been filed. If that game existed before that, you cannot just go after them with the patent. It just will not work. Also, if the patent doesn't go through, which it won't, because if games are released with those kind of mechanics in there, you can't just claim, oh, we have that. You can try what you want. It will never hold up in court. Here in the United States, that is.
Now we have Schedule 1 going through the same mess, originally reported on by Andrew Heighton of Insider Gaming in an article titled Schedule 1 being investigated for IP copyright infringement claims. They write, evidence on the investigation surfaced on a website, Pab Business, featuring a document entitled Movie Games SA 17-2025, Decision to Commence Investigation Against the Creators of Schedule 1 Production for claims regarding the infringement of the issuer's IP and related to committing an act of unfair competition against it. Movie Games SA has its own series of drug dealing games, Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and Drug Dealer Simulator 2. While the name is more overt than its goal, both titles have attracted thousands of players respectively. The legal document mentions potential infringement of the issuer's intellectual property rights and activities that bear characteristics of unfair competition have been identified. Ergo, Schedule 1 is too similar to the Drug Dealer Simulator series. Proceedings began as soon as Schedule 1 released on March 24th and featured a comparative analysis of the IP, which includes Drug Dealer Simulator and Drug Dealer Simulator 2 and the Schedule 1 project.
This will never go through. The reason why it won't go through is because if every shooter after Doom got sued because of Doom, there'd be no other shooters except Doom. So this won't go through more than nothing. If anything, you're going to find out in this further in this video that this is also kind of bullshit because even these people didn't even know this was happening.
The investigation is strongly looking into elements of the game's plot, mechanics, as well as UI user interface. It finishes by saying, the issuer will immediately inform about further actions related to the pursuit of claims regarding the infringement of the issuer's IP and the act of unfair competition in subsequent current reports. Yeah, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say the unfair competition they're referring to is the part where Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and 2 combined couldn't even crack 20,000 players, while Schedule 1 is one of the most talked about and played games on Steam right now. At least with Nintendo and Palworld, you could kind of see where that lawsuit was coming from. The creature designs, the ball throwing mechanics, they were all surface level elements that were echoing Pokemon. Even with Temtem, they got out of the way of Nintendo by making...
Let's see Drug Simulator 1 and 2 real quick. Let's look that up. Let's see. So 20 and 25. Okay, so same price. When did this come out? 2020. This one came out in 2024. And it's mixed. Okay, why is it mixed? Let's find out. Okay, so we're seeing some major problems here. So it looks like it's not fun. It's people about Schedule 1. They're like, it's just clunky, it's janky. Okay, that's a problem. Game-breaking bugs, saves. So there's really an issue going on here. And then if we go through this one's actually positive. Okay. Game-breaking bug. Boring. Okay, so now we know why the lawsuit's going on. Looked it up.
Making sure they were using cards instead of balls, but this investigation against Schedule 1 feels completely out of pocket. It's not just a stretch, it's embarrassing that they're even trying. I've taken the time to check it out, and Schedule 1 doesn't really share anything structurally significant with their games whatsoever. The crafting, the progression loops, the interface, the tone, it's all completely different. To be honest, Ubisoft has a stronger claim against them ripping off a Far Cry than they do against Schedule 1. In their games, you start off as a low-level pusher working for somebody else, then slowly build out your own operation. It leans way harder into weighing product, micromanaging dead drops, dodging rival gangs and ferrying shipments across different islands. It's less of a game and more of a chore simulator. Sure, they both have similar themes, but if having drugs as your premise is going to be the trigger for legal action, by that logic, are they going to go after Breaking Bad next? After news of the investigation broke, media outlets jumped the gun and ran with headlines saying that Schedule 1 was facing an active lawsuit. The internet then did what it does best. Players flooded Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and 2 with negative reviews, dragging the game into a storm that they weren't ready for. In response to this, the developers posted a statement on Steam clarifying the situation.
Oh, don't flood it with bad reviews. It doesn't work. Just don't buy the game. That's it. If you're going to buy the game, try it out, see what you think. If it sucks, just write the game sucks. Here's the reason why. Give structural reasons why it's not good. There you go. That's what we saw. We're fine.
To paraphrase a little bit, they're saying that there is no lawsuit, that they're not trying to shut down Schedule 1, and the investigation was only launched after repeated comparisons between the two games raised concerns. Since Movie Games SA is a publicly traded company, they claim that they are legally obligated to investigate potential infringement and disclose it through proper stock market channels, ESPI. The media then picked it up from there, and the story spiraled out of control. They also then clarified, saying that the developer of Drug Dealer Simulator, Byte Runners, isn't involved at all. It's strictly a publisher-level decision. The post then closes with them insisting that there is no bad blood and that they even sent Schedule 1's developer best wishes before the game blew up. But whether it's legal obligation or damage control, it's clear that this isn't the kind of attention that they were expecting. And this is where things get really weird for me, because there was a second response, and this time it was from the actual developers at Byte Runners, where I think the first response was actually written by their publisher, and it's kind of a plot twist. In a statement that they posted on Twitter, Rafal, the CEO and developer of the Drug Dealer Simulator series, basically said, "We had no idea that this was happening." According to him, the development team wasn't informed of the investigation at all, and they only found out when the story blew up online, claiming that they were just as blindsided as everyone else. He writes, "In light of the recent Movie Games versus Schedule 1 legal investigation controversy, I would like to state that we, Byte Runners, the development studio behind Drug Dealer Simulator series, do not have any ill intentions towards neither Schedule 1, TVGS, or the game community. Actions taken by our publisher, Movie Games SA, are a part of an internal policy and business interest, which we have no influence over. We were not informed of their plans and were also surprised by this course of action. We are currently in talks with Movie Games on this matter. For now, we do not want to publicly neither condone nor approve of the actions before these talks have come to any conclusions." I think basically this dude is saying, we don't know if it's good or bad for us yet, so we need to wait to figure it out.
Yeah, basically saying we don't want to talk about this any further until we know what's going on.
I'd like to ask everyone on both DDS and Schedule 1 communities to be patient and not spread unnecessary negativity or misinformation. We congratulate the success of Schedule 1 to TVGS and would like every gamer to enjoy and support any game they choose. Our main focus as the dev team is improving the DDS IP, which also includes learning on the Schedule 1 massive success and its and our community feedback on it. All we ask for now is your understanding. The tone here couldn't be any more different from the original Steam post, where the publisher had framed the investigation as a necessary legal procedure. The developer comes off as almost embarrassed by the entire thing. Then they go out of their way to distance themselves from the publisher's actions, saying that they don't condone or approve of anything yet? What does that even mean? And now they're just waiting for internal talks? I'm just going to go with my gut here and say they didn't expect the backlash to be this bad. There is no chance. There is no way that you are going to convince me that your publisher, without any communication, suddenly launched a legal investigation on your behalf using your game as a basis without you knowing anything about it. That is not how legal prep works. To even begin an investigation like this, you need access to build files, source assets, system documentation, something from the development team to be able to make the comparisons necessary for a legitimate IP case. So either you were involved and now you're walking it back, or your publisher went rogue and dragged you into a legal case without any warning and snuck into your office and stole the files. Neither one of those look very good. And even if for whatever reason Byte Runners wasn't involved in this decision, I'm sorry, this is what comes with the territory when you sign up with a publisher. Tyler didn't. He developed and published Schedule 1 himself. Every decision he makes, every success or controversy, it's all on him. But once you hand over the reins to a publisher, you are also signing up for all of their baggage, the legal departments, the investor meetings, the risk management, the corporate damage control. You don't get to opt out when it gets uncomfortable. And the claim that the investigation was already in motion before the game took off, total bullshit. The investigation was formally initiated on April 3rd. Schedule 1 launched on March 24th. And by the 30th, it had already hit over 400,000 concurrent players. This wasn't some long-planned legal strategy. Otherwise, why would you guys have sent them a congratulations email? It was a knee-jerk response to getting blown out of the water. I don't know about you guys, but from where I'm sitting, this looks like a textbook case of a publisher, and more likely their board of directors and shareholders panicking over the fact that the game that they backed didn't deliver, while a solo developer just ate their lunch in broad daylight. So now they're trying to claw back some relevance and revenue through legal pressure instead of actually trying to make games that people want to play. It's all retaliatory. It's all bitter, and it reeks of a system that sees creativity as not something to nurture, but something to control. Now, I actually posted this in a response on Twitter to the Byte Runner CEO's letter to the players, but I basically said, yeah, this must suck to be completely powerless in this situation, but this is exactly what you signed up for. And honestly, the more that I think about it, this probably explains why so many of these self-published indie games are blowing up, while these smaller studios tied to these tiny publishers are scraping by. Creative freedom, no bureaucracy, no boardroom full of guys in suits that are second-guessing your every move, just a developer and an idea. And honestly, that's probably the conversation that we really need to be having here, because this isn't just about one game or one legal spat. There needs to be a bigger push towards independence in video game development. Too many of these publishers aren't interested in creating anything. They don't build worlds. They don't design mechanics. They don't tell stories. What they do is manage. And in that management, they influence the industry more than they contribute to it. Their primary goal isn't to support creativity. It's to control outcomes. They want to shape trends, shape players, shape spending habits. And when they fund something, that comes with strings attached, strings that always pull in the direction of risk aversion or maximizing profits. Sure, publishers offer funding and infrastructure. They offer visibility, marketing pipelines, access to networks, but it comes at the cost of freedom, a voice, of innovation. How many times have we heard stories about developers that were pressured into adding in microtransactions that they didn't want to put into their game? Or how many times have we heard about games that were forced to pivot towards live service even when that didn't fit their vision? These decisions rarely come from the development team themselves. They come from people upstairs, people staring at spreadsheets, not playtests, people who see creativity as a variable that needs to be managed, not a driving force. From my perspective, in many ways, publishers have become the industrialists of this medium. They're more concerned with scalability and litigation than actually making games themselves. They commodify everything about the creative process. They strip out the rough edges, the weird ideas, the risk, and replace them with something that fits into their monetization model of the moment. And then
Well, the problem is games like this show up and they blow up out of nowhere. And it's almost like, well, what do we do? How do we invest? You know, and that's part of the problem. You know, like the market has just been unstable for a while now. So it's like people having to try making up their minds. Like, yeah, you got the average sports game or Call of Duty that sells like crazy every year. That's because those fan bases, they hold on to what they want to hold on to. But then you get other people who just want to play games that are just fun, and they buy stuff like this. So it's like, all right, well, what do we do? How do you invest? When you have a market that's unstable, how do you invest in anything? You know, and yeah, it's hard. And the reality is you have to invest in smaller games with lower budgets, smaller teams that are just fun. Short, simple, straightforward fun. That way you can make your money back, make a profit, and then you can build the industry based on that. No one's doing that except small developers. You know, some studios are on board with that, but not a whole lot.
they sit back wondering why none of these games are resonating, why they're failing to meet their sales targets. It's not the players that are the problem. It's not the developers that are the problem. It's the layer that's in between, the suits that are trying to systemize everything that's not meant to be a system in the first place. And the more games that we see, like Schedule 1, that are succeeding without them, the more obvious that becomes. You know, I think a lot of these publishers and executives that are running these companies are the biggest barrier to creativity and success for the vast majority of these developers. They don't outright build anything themselves. They just go out of their way to try to control it or squash it if it threatens their margins in any way. And that sucks. Not just for us, the players, but also for the people that are making these games. I mean, like, patent laws in general in the video game ecosystem just don't make any sense whatsoever. All these layers of red tape for something that just shouldn't be there in the first place. Even if a developer isn't trying to copy something, they're just going to ignore it or try not to be anything like it just out of the implicit threat that comes from legal action. They just stay away from it.
Not always. It's more of like, we live in a very sue-happy society here in the U.S. That's part of the problem. So, when someone sees something like, oh, I think it infringes on something, then they're going to just try to sue. And I said, legal system is starting to catch up to where it's like they're saying, no, you can't do that no more. Like, unless there's something specifically like copied from your game, no, you can't do that. You got to let it go. If one game just sells better than yours, well, then they have a better market. That's just the way it is. Same with live streaming. Like SQC still outstreams me. Why? He's on all the fucking time, and two, he just has this market. Same with KSO and some of the other streamers that just blow up. They just get that market. It's the way it is. I'm not going to go suing them for that because that's why I have a day job and I do things, to make sure my bills are paid. I just do this for fun.
That's why we sit back and wonder why we haven't seen a game like this again, or that, or whatever it might be. In theory, publishers are supposed to be there to be able to make things easier for developers. They're supposed to be able to take care of all the noise, and then developers just focus on doing what they do best, making video games, and that's about it. But the minute that you start handing over all of that power, all of a sudden you find out that you don't really get to make a whole lot of decisions on your own anymore. That's what's happened to some of these people. When you get in bed with these guys, this is the end result of that. They go out and attack your competition. How does that feel? I can't imagine that feels very good. These guys are creatives. They want to make games. They want other people to be inspired by their work and make games of their own. And now you have to sit back and watch what happens. I'm sorry, man, but you're not innocent in that. And we feel the effects of it too, without a doubt. We still get some great games, but at the exact same time, I've had a really weird feeling that things have just kind of felt samey for a really long time. Very samey, very safe in a lot of cases. And I think that comes from the fact that, if any game tries to make a game like Pokemon, they're going to get scared away or they're going to get sued into oblivion. So many mechanics. Look at the way that Nintendo has litigated and patented just about everything. Sony's been doing the same thing. Look at WB Games and the Nemesis system. Something that would revolutionize RPGs and we'll never see it. Ever. There's such a poison to this industry. It's insane. And you look around and notice almost...
There with Namco. Namco had this one cool feature where you could play a game while waiting for a game to load. And they patented that. So all of a sudden, no one can make that ever again. That's why so many of those loading screens you just stare at. Companies have tried it, and then they get sued, and then they can't make that game no more. It's like, hopefully some of these patents get axed. They just say, you know what, screw it. You can't patent that. That's ridiculous.
Almost every single one of these breakout hits have always been self-published. And in some cases where these developers did go through a publisher, the only reason they did that was to be able to protect their identity. There needs to be more options for that. That needs to be nurtured and taken care of. There needs to be more developers that are making games themselves, publishing games themselves, and there needs to be an easier way for these guys to get onto platforms without the need of a publisher. There's already ways for them that you don't even need publishers anymore. Sure, for like legal and patent and stuff like that, hire a lawyer, man. Why are you handing away all of your profit, all of your control to a bunch of people that don't want to have anything to do with the creative process whatsoever?
So the corporate structure, they have the legal backend, they have the lawyers, they have everything else. When you have to pay for that yourself, it can get expensive after a while. That's the only reason why. And yeah, it's sort of a yin-yang type of thing, but if you make enough money to support yourself and pay for that yourself, then yes, you can do it. It's just really difficult.
It just doesn't make any sense. You can promote your games online with no problem. Balatro had next to no marketing whatsoever. Schedule 1 had next to no marketing whatsoever. Valheim had no marketing whatsoever. There's so many more examples that I could give of games that never had an ad or a commercial or anything like that. They were just on Steam. People played it. People liked it. Spread.
And they did have a little bit of ads for, but they did it a certain way. Like they had enough people to where they could send the game out to and they could just build on a little bit. So there's probably a little something going on in the background there. This wasn't like, highly advertised. You didn't see no ads for it. But as they say, if you have the audience for your product, then your product will sell well. And then of course it just builds on that from word of mouth.
Read by word of mouth. Fair price, good game, people go buy it. As far as it needs to go. That's what needs to happen. We need more of it. And I want that to be a big focus. I think Steam is the leader in that. Steam's definitely the one that's been pushing and helping a lot of these indie developers be able to find their legs in the industry. And I appreciate that. I think everybody does. There's a lot of games that we would have never had if it wasn't for Steam. So, thank God for Gavin. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the...
Legendary drops, sub to the guy if you can. He's really nice. All right. Let's get rid of the starting soon logo because I'm an idiot sometimes. All right. Now, I have tried this before. This is why there's a continue option, but starting a new game from scratch. I already set everything up here. And damn. Bye, Uncle Ruckus. Have a nice day. I'll drop the soap in prison. All right, and into the new world. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Fuck. The bastards. Talk to Uncle Ruckus again. His name's Nelson, but I call him Uncle Ruckus. All right. One of these and one of those. Ah, shit. bags. Slim. Ah, bingo. Put this there. got no products though. I just didn't think of that. All right. I'm gonna grab all my stuff and bring it over there. Shit, I gotta grow it first. Huh? Stats with Ludwig whenever he calls. Huh? No, I'm not talking much, but I'm just going through the game. I'm keeping things steady because I just want to. One thing I've learned is deliver on prices first, then jack things up later. Five. Yeah. Yeah. Tent. Get some more soil. Should be good. should give him a fair price. Oh well. Oh my god. Oh my god. Lifted once. And I ain't got shit. Save it. Yeah, we'll call it a night. Game is okay. Maybe I'm playing a little longer, I might get used to it. That's gonna do it for tonight. So thank you for joining me. Having a great time. Tomorrow I'll be back to Fortnite. As long as it's online. I'm doing this also. I just want to get away from Fortnite for a day. Just, take a break. But anyway, so far it's a good game. I'm enjoying it a little bit. Maybe I'll play some more on my Steam Deck or something. But that being said, have yourselves a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow at 3 a.m. Take care.